Hello, and welcome back to the World Cup of Slot, our bracket challenge, or World Cup, if you will, of slot car manufacturers. 16 of the finest purveyors of slot racing materials being judged in a totally subjective way by two men in a cupboard.
That is definitely the name the podcast should be. Two Men in a Cupboard. That's going to change it instantly. Yes. It's the 2024 World Cup of Slot. It's important to put the date on because clearly this is going to become a historically significant.
People are going to be rapt waiting for it.
Annual event, or possibly less. But anyway, we're into the second half of the draw. Well, into the second half, match 5, which sees Scalextric pitched against Teamlsot. And just to add extra spice to the discussion or the outcome of the discussion, the winner gets to take on Slot in a quarter-final. So I'm going to launch forth in a sterling defence, which is not defence, that's an accusation. That speaks Freudian slip. Anyway, I'm going to speak on behalf of Scalextric to start off with.
My lad,
I think... for all the many foibles, flaws, and other things beginning with F, colour fuck-ups, may have to beep that. They remain kind of, the master class of making toy slot cars because they invented it. They've been doing it for... how many years? 70 years? Something like that.
70-something now, yeah.
70-something. We all grew up with it. We all wanted it. We're all still playing with it. I know we all find pick holes in them from time to time. But having said that, I'm sure there are thousands of kids who only a month ago opened a big box under the Christmas tree and were delighted to find that they'd got a slot car set made by Scalextric. Grown men probably opened parcels delighted to see that they'd got, a Land Rover or a big pink Fab 1 or any one of a number of real racing cars. So the point I'm making is that the diversity of model that they make, it's not for everybody. They don't try to be for everybody. They're just they're doing what they do, and I think they do it very well. Not the fastest things in the world, but they're not meant to be. Generally, very nicely finished. Generally pretty accurate models. I'm saying emphasis in general. Every now and again there's a bit of a whoopsie, and I'm sure everybody will be listening to one, and relatively cost effective. I mean, RRP is just a bit over 50 at the minute, but you can get them for just under 50 quid from most of the online shops. So they're probably the most affordable slot cars at the minute in a range sense. So there you go. That's my, relatively impassioned plea on behalf of what I'm going to refer to as the home team.
Yeah. And it's hard to argue the fact that Scalextric is certainly in this country, and I think in several others, Australia and the States in particular, the gateway to the hobby. A healthy Scalextric is a healthy hobby as far as I see it. They've taken steps to address some of the problems that occurred when they went to more detailed stuff. Not quite enough steps for me, but they are taking steps to make the cars fun to drive as well as being more and more collectibles. Thankfully, the days of full interiors at all costs have gone. We still have not the best guide system. We still have axles that are fixed in place at the front and allow no play and no give. We have cars that are built and designed around the height of the magnet from the track, from their own track and nobody else's track. So that much rigidity in terms of design hurts them in how I perceive them and how many other people in the hobby perceive them. It's stuff that's designed to run with magnets, never opened by anyone, the cars, and just plonk it on the track and send it round. And sometimes you will plonk it on the track, send it round, and have a digital race strategy to play with as well. But yeah, we sort of, because we could do so much more historically with Scalextric cars, and clubs were founded and ran for many years because Scalextric cars could be used in that way, and people could just buy one, plonk it on a wood track, plonk it on any proprietary track, and go. It's a bit more of a struggle sometimes, but things are being addressed. So
I think the club thing, I would have, and may just be my experience, I think it was more the SCX and particularly Ninko that saw that explosion, because even in the boom days of slot car tracks, it wasn't Scalextric cars that were racing, people were making their own chassis and all that sort of thing. So Scalextric, I think, my perception, have always been the home set thing. They've not really been the racing thing. Certainly, as you say, the gateway, the way in. And many people are very happy with that. Great brand, everybody knows it. Every 5 years, some real car manufacturer runs a TV or an ad campaign that features, a reference to playing with a slot car. So it's in the culture.
They've been a gift to the 3D printing industry because the bodies are nice and they're cars that people want. But if you want to make a slot car other than one that you just plonk down with a magnet in, you need a new chassis and you need to play with it a bit. And so, yeah, people are setting up their own little businesses making chassis primarily for Scalextric cars.
Okay. Teamlsot.
Quirky.
Mm-hmm.
Always quirky. They were always the cars that you bought because you wanted that specific car. Not because you wanted a Teamlsot slot car, but because you wanted a 16-valve Integrale rather than the Evo that SCX makes, or whatever quirkiness they get. The Celica. Primarily rally cars, obviously, or road cars. The Stratos, I suppose, is the defining Teamlsot car, and actually, by very few measurements, does it really look like a Stratos. But people have massive affection for it. It's wildly overpowered. The wheels fall off regularly. He designs his own wheels in the oddest way sometimes. Like the insert is actually part of the structure of the wheel on some of them. So you can't put the inserts into a alloy wheel. If you're buying something the same size, you'd have to engineer them. Fit and finish is patchy, but you sort of live with it as part of the charm.
I think I would certainly agree with the older Teamlsot cars, and the clear evolution for them, where they were originally kind of quite rough approximations of the shape of a car, shall we say. That got better and better. I mean, the more recent ones, so the Lancia you've mentioned, the Quattro, the Celica's seen a new lease of life with a new chassis under it. I'm pretty sure it's the same body. Those are all fairly accurate, and the decoration on them is pretty good. There's some fine detail on them. Can be a bit fragile, but yeah, it's mostly rallying stuff, which is what they're. Slot. I think there's an argument to be said.
A tip of the hat has to be given to Steve Staffs, the importer, for many years, because he has, the police cars, the police Ford Escorts and stuff like that, the UK specific ones, and Teamlsot is a manufacturer that has sort of lent itself to that. They're small, they're nimble, and if you want to come up with a market-specific car, they will try and make it, obviously from existing products, but they will tailor it. So it's nice to see things like that happen.
If this was a competition which was about slot rallying, it would be a completely one-sided game, wouldn't it? I mean, Scalextric just wouldn't stand a chance. They'd get an honourable mention for making some interesting cars, but in terms of performance. But as it's an overall thing,
I don't see it as much of a competition. This matchup, in as much as it's the gateway brand for the English-speaking world versus a quirky Spanish manufacturer who makes cars for people that are interested in those specific cars.
It's funny, if anyone's been listening to these and they think, well, how could this seems to happen a lot? We put big manufacturer against small one. It was genuinely a random draw. We cut up the names, put them in a pot, and I drew them out at random. So this is just the way it happened. But it's been interesting we seem to have got big company versus relatively small company, and small companies have been struggling, partly because of that bread. So I think we can declare a victory for Scalextric, which means they go forward to meet a broadly similar competitor, I think. So Slot and Teamlsot, in my mind, are kind of close cousins, but not the same, obviously. But so anyway, so it's a quarterfinal, sorry, not a semi. So Slot versus Scalextric coming to a podcast provider or YouTube channel near you soon. We move on. They've got 2 more of the first round matches to go, creatively named Match 7 and Match 8, and they'll be coming up soon. So we hope you're listening and enjoying, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.